What's up, everybody? The Boston Celtics have had a pretty good offseason. They managed to get better defensively while upgrading the roster and increasing cap space for next offseason. So in this video, we're going to do an in-depth analysis of the Celtics roster for the upcoming season. Please note that this isn't necessarily the Celtics projected rotation, this is just the Celtics depth chart at each position. But before we continue, please like the video and subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a banger. Now let's get started. Let's start off with point guards. I think the starting point guard for the Boston Celtics will more than likely be Dennis Schroeder. I could be wrong, as Marcus Smart could end up getting the starting position, but I think Schroeder will win out due to his superior scoring and playmaking. Schroeder averaged 15 points and 6 assists per game last year for the Lakers. While he's a below average 3-point shooter, he's an excellent slasher due to the fact that he's one of the quickest point guards in the league. He's also a really tough perimeter defender. It's also possible that Schroeder is utilized as a backup, as his best year in the league was when he was a 6th man in OKC, but either way, he's a great addition to Boston's backcourt. Behind Dennis, we have Marcus Smart, who's been the heart and soul of the Boston Celtics for years now. He's an elite defender, making 2 all-defensive first teams in his career, and his defensive energy is infectious and raises the team's overall effort on that end of the floor. Smart has also gotten worlds better offensively since being in the league. What's an offensive liability? He averaged a career-high 13 points and 6 assists per game last year. His scoring can still be inconsistent and inefficient, but he's become a legit source of scoring and playmaking 7 years into his NBA career. If Smart isn't starting, he'll be one of the better backup point guards in the league next year. Next is former rookie sensation Peyton Pritchard. Last season, Peyton Pritchard was a draft steal for the Boston Celtics. Despite being taken 26 overall, Pritchard proved to be a legit scoring option for the Celtics and a knockdown shooter. And despite being only 6'1", he proved to be a surprisingly good defender. Pritchard has a tremendous work ethic, and there's no doubt in my mind that he'll be much better heading into next season. He more than likely won't start, but as he continues to grow as a playmaker and shot creator, he could be on the verge of a breakout season. And the last point guard on the roster we'll talk about is Chris Dunn. The Celtics acquired Chris Dunn in a 3-team trade over the offseason, and he'll prove to be a solid addition to the team. While he's limited offensively, he's one of the elite defensive guards in the league, nearly making all defensive second team in his last healthy year. Dunn not only strengthens Boston's point guard rotation, but will give them some much needed perimeter defense. Now let's move on to shooting guards. The most likely starter for the Celtics at the 2-guard position will be Josh Richardson. Richardson has been a good starter since his days in Miami, and he'll be a strong part of the Celtics backcourt this year. He's an excellent perimeter defender, where his size at 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan help him to be versatile defensively. And on offense, while his 3-point shooting leaves much to be desired, he's a legit shot creator and playmaker that can help to relieve the pressure from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Richardson was a sneaky good pickup for the Celtics this offseason, and he'll prove to be a quality starter at the 2. Next, we have Romeo Langford. Langford was a lottery pick for the Celtics back in 2019. Throughout his first 2 years in the league, he's played very low minutes and spent plenty of time in the G League. In his sophomore year, he averaged just 3 points in 16 minutes a game. He's been plagued by injuries, but his short career has undoubtedly been a disappointment, especially with the hype he had going into Indiana. Langford recently has been playing good in Summer League, which is an encouraging sign for the upcoming season. He's not guaranteed to play significant minutes next year, but if he can break into the rotation, there's definitely a possibility he could become a spark plug off the bench. And finally, at 2-guard is Juan Begarin, who was the 45th pick for the Celtics in the draft. Begarin is a very talented but raw prospect. He's 6'6" with a long 7-foot wingspan, and he's very bouncy and athletic. With the veterans ahead of him, I doubt Begarin sees too much playing time in his rookie year, but it would be smart for Boston to let him play in the G League so he can get some burn. Hopefully in time, he can eventually become a quality player for Boston. Next, let's move on to small forwards, where starting off we have Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown got even better last season, making the first All-Star team of his career. The 4-year, $115 million extension that Boston signed him to in 2019 looks like a steal. Last year, he increased his scoring average to 25 points per game. His ball handling and shooting skills have become elite, which has helped him to become a great scorer. While Jaylen Brown has become a great player, his incredible stats last year didn't coincide with great team success. Last year's failure wasn't entirely Brown's fault, but in order to take the next level as a player, Brown needs to learn to do a better job of making his teammates better. Brown has a tremendous work ethic, so there's no doubt in my mind that he'll continue to improve, and at just 24 years old, the sky is truly the limit. Next at small forward is Aaron Nesmith. Nesmith was the 14th pick in last year's draft. He struggled to start the season, but towards the end, he started to find his groove. He was a defensive liability at the beginning of the year, but his defense improved as the year went on. His three-point shooting also improved to the point where he finished the year shooting a solid 37% from three-point range. Nesmith looks like he'll be a really solid 3-and-D player for the Celtics' second unit next year. At power forward, we have the best player on the team in Jason Tatum. Tatum looked like a borderline superstar last year, averaging 26 points and 7 boards a game on excellent efficiency. He's a masterful shot creator thanks to his incredible ball handling and shooting skills. And on the other side of the ball, he can really use his physical gifts to be disruptive on the defensive end. Similar to Brown, Tatum needs to learn how to do a better job at making his teammates better. Last year, the Celtics offense too often lacked ball movement, and that was partly due to Tatum and Brown's ISO-heavy play. But at just 23 years old, Tatum has plenty of time to fix his weaknesses and maximize his potential. He showed a glimpse of what he can be when he scored 50 points against the Nets in the playoffs. Tatum is the main reason why, despite last year's setback, the Celtics' future is still incredibly bright. Next at power forward, we have Grant Williams. Williams was selected by the Celtics with the 22nd pick of the 2019 draft. Throughout his couple years in the league, he showed that he can be a solid 3-and-D player, but he's also been inconsistent, which is part of the reason why his minutes have been low. He may not play a ton of minutes next year, but he's more than capable of giving serviceable minutes when he's on the floor. And finally, we'll move on to center, where we're starting off with the Time Lord. Al Horford may end up being the starter at center, but I would like to see Robert Williams start. Like Tatum, Williams also had a breakout game in the playoffs, dropping a near triple-double with 11 points, 9 boards, and 9 blocks against the Nets. He may only be 6'8", but he's got a monster 7'6" wingspan, and he's a terrific athlete, making him a great shot blocker. And he's not just a great rim protector, but he's agile enough to guard perimeter players as well. He's got the potential to be as good as Bam Adebayo defensively. On offense, he's a great finisher and a surprisingly good passer. Outside of Tatum and Brown, the Time Lord is arguably the most promising young player on the Celtics. If he can make another leap in his 4th year, that'll really increase the Celtics' ceiling as a team. Behind Williams, I have Al Horford. Horford is pretty old at 35, but he's still pretty good. He's no longer the all-star he used to be, but he can still shoot, he can still pass, and he can also rebound and defend. He'll definitely help to upgrade the Celtics center position for next year. He'll also prove to be invaluable for the development of Robert Williams. Overall, Horford will prove to be a pretty nice addition. Next at center, we have Enes Kanter. At this point of his career, we know what Kanter brings to the table. He's a terrific rebounder and scorer on the block, but an absolute horrible defender. He'll beef up Boston's center position and provide some regular season minutes, but don't expect to see him on the floor come playoff time. He was a complete minus every time he stepped on the floor for Portland last postseason, and it's been like that for most of his career. But on a minimum contract, Kanter will prove to be a decent addition. And lastly, at center, we have Bruno Fernando. Fernando was acquired in the same 3-team trade that landed Boston Chris Dunn and Josh Richardson. He was viewed as a promising pick in the 2019 NBA draft, but seldom saw the floor in his 2 years with the Atlanta Hawks. He's a 6'9" big man that can rebound, defend, and score at the rim. I doubt he'll be in the regular season rotation, but he'll likely provide some solid minutes for when injuries eventually happen. Anyway guys, that's going to be the end of the video. If you're a Boston Celtics fan, you should be happy with what Brad Stevens did with the roster. This Celtics team going into next year is significantly deeper and a lot better defensively. If Boston can get a leap from their young core, this is a team that should be battling it out for the 4 or 5 seed in the East. The Celtics have also positioned themselves to have cap space in the summer of 2022, which can help them potentially land a big name like Bradley Beal. While last season was undoubtedly a regression, Brad Stevens has well positioned this team to take a major step forward. But anyway guys, that's going to be the end of the video. If you enjoyed this, make sure to press the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.